Welcome to ILTV's Israel Daily. I'm Emily Schrader, and coming up in today's newscast. Day 76 of the war in Gaza, and the IDF has completed its ground offensive in the north. Despite recent Qatari and Egyptian mediation efforts, Hamas rejects the Israeli proposed hostage deal. And United Hatala goes international with their new task force aimed at tackling global anti-Semitism. Day 76 of the war in Gaza, and the IDF has wrapped its offensive in Gaza City in the north and revealed the vast terrorist tunnel network under the former Hamas terror capital. The U.S. is calling for Israel to wrap up this phase of the war in Gaza, while Prime Minister Netanyahu insists that Israel will fight until Hamas is destroyed. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
Day 76 of the war in Gaza, and the IDF says that the offensive in the north is completed in and around Gaza City and is moving to outlying areas of Daraj and Tufa. In occupied Gaza City, the IDF unveiled a massive tunnel network under the former Hamas capital that has served Hamas leadership before and at the start of the war on October 7th. Hidden beneath Palestine Square in Gaza City, the tunnel network allowed the free movement of terrorist forces below ground and served as a bunker for the top Hamas leadership and as a transportation route to above-ground sites in and around Palestine Square and in Gaza City.
חשפנו מתחת לרובע הבכירים רשת מסועפת של תשתיות אסטרטגיות תת-קרקעיות ששימשו את הנהגת חמאס. עניה, דף ויחיא סינואר, כולם השתמשו בתשתיות האלה, השתמשו בהם גם בשגרה וגם בחירום וגם בתחילת המלחמה ב-7 באוקטובר, ניהלו משם את הלחימה.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Netanyahu reiterated that Israel will continue the war until the end and Hamas is eliminated.
אנחנו ממשיכים במלחמה עד הסוף. היא תימשך עד לחיסול החמאס, עד לניצחון. מי שחושב שנעצור, פשוט לא מחובר למציאות. לא נפסיק את הלחימה עד להשגת כל המטרות שהצבנו. חיסול החמאס, שחרור חטופינו, והסרת האיום מעזה.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said he expects the Israeli offensive in Gaza will soon wind down and move to a lower intensity phase of the war.
It's clear that the conflict will move and needs to move to a lower intensity phase. And we expect to see and want to see a shift to more targeted operations with a smaller number of forces that's really focused in on dealing with the leadership of Hamas, the tunnel network, and a few other critical things.
With the offensive in northern Gaza largely completed, the Army's focus is currently on the main remaining Hamas stronghold in Khan Yunis, where Hamas leadership is believed to be hiding.
They deny the kidnapping of our children, the murder of our grandchildren, the rape of our daughters. The new Nazis we face today will stop at nothing to destroy civilization as we know it. The World Jewish Congress was created exactly for these times like this, so every Jew can fall asleep at night knowing they are safe in their own home. We are a voice for the Jewish people everywhere. We are the World Jewish Congress.
The IDF announced the names of 3 more troops who were killed fighting Hamas in the northern Gaza Strip, bringing the death toll in Israel's ground offensive against the terror group to 137. Sergeant Levi Gehasi, 19, from Hashmonaim, an infantryman in the Nahal Brigade's 931st Battalion. Lieutenant Yaakov Elian, 20, from Ramat Gan, a cadet in the Bahad 1 Officer School, Green Battalion, and former Givati Squad commander. Lieutenant Omri Schwartz, 21, from Shadmot Dvora, a cadet in the Geffen Battalion and a soldier in the Paratrooper Brigade's Reconnaissance Battalion. Fallen heroes, may their memories be a blessing. Hamas has reportedly rejected the Israeli offer of a one-week pause in exchange for the release of another batch of Israeli hostages. The terrorists say that there will be no new hostage deal without an end to the Israeli war in Gaza. More from ILTV's Steve Leibowitz.
The Israeli proposal sent to Egyptian and Qatari leaders and reportedly rejected by Hamas would have allowed more humanitarian aid into Gaza and freed hundreds of Palestinian security prisoners in exchange for about 40 Israeli women, sick, and elderly hostages held in Hamas captivity. U.S. President Joe Biden said he did not expect a second hostage deal to be struck in the coming days, despite intense activity in Qatar and Egypt to broker such an agreement.
Are we expecting a hostage deal anytime soon?
Yes.
Oh, really? Okay.
Well, where?
Over in, oh, no, I was talking about over
You're talking about we're pushing it. There's no expectation at this point, but we are pushing.
And your reaction to 20,000 dead in Gaza, that death toll reached today, likely to be reached today?
It's tragic.
In a sign that efforts to broker another deal are underway despite Biden's cautionary note and public rejection, Hamas political leader Ismail Haniyeh met Egyptian mediators in Cairo, and Israeli Mossad chief met mediators in Qatar. Mediation efforts appear to be ongoing. In early November, a week-long pause saw the release of 105 out of the 250 hostages taken by Hamas in its October 7th rampage. Some 130 Israeli hostages remain in captivity.
Kfar Aza was one of the hardest hit sites by Hamas terrorists on October 7th. And now delegations from around the world are coming to Israel to see the site of the atrocities and show solidarity with the people of Israel. ILTV's editor-in-chief Lidar Grave-Lazi accompanied a delegation led by former Israeli ambassador to the UN, Danny Danon. Let's take a look.
I'm here in Kibbutz Kfar Aza in the south of Israel, one of the sites of the October 7th massacre. I'm joining a delegation led by member of Knesset and former UN ambassador Danny Danon, along with Governor Mike Huckabee and other leaders from the Christian community in the United States.
First, we are grateful that they took time, it's Christmas Eve, evangelical leaders to come and stand with Israel. We don't take it for granted. And we ask them to allow us to complete the mission, to finish the job in Gaza. We need their support. They have a lot of followers, a lot of people following their ideas and thoughts, and we believe that they should be vocal about that, allowing Israel to finish the job. With all due respect to the UN, to the EU, we see what happened here in Kfar Aza, the atrocities, the raping, the kidnapping. We have to make sure that it will not happen again.
What message would you have to the Christian community, to the viewers watching us?
First, we want to thank them for their support and their love. We need you to pray for us. We need you to stand with us and to be vocal. We are fighting evil. Exactly like in the biblical times that the people of Israel faced evil, today we are facing evil and we are determined to win.
Unfortunately, here in Kibbutz Kfar Aza, and again, it's one of the 22 communities, we lost over 10% of the population. So 10% of the population that resided here was either kidnapped into Gaza or was murdered in their houses. And that's not including the people that were injured, and not including the trauma, of course. And I think it's touched this community, but Israel in general, in such an immense way, that the world needs to know and to see and to understand what took place here. And even 75 days in, you're here. And I don't know if you can see it through the screen as well as you do in real life. But when you're here, you sense it.
So I'm here now in what's called the Young People's Neighborhood. This was one of the worst hit areas of the kibbutz. I mean, you can really see the absolute devastation here behind me. It's really difficult to describe, but this was the site of one of the worst massacres here on the kibbutz. People ages 18 and up, all young adults, all just absolutely massacred.
I hope that what we've seen with our eyes and what we are reporting having seen will eliminate the insanity of people saying that it really didn't happen, because it really did. And we need to make sure that the people of the world stand with Israel and don't try to tell them how to prosecute the war for their survival, And that's what this is. This is not a war for revenge. This is a war for the survival of the state of Israel. And that's why we pray that they do not relent and they do not stop until this threat has been forever removed from them.
So right now I'm in Kfar Aza, right on the border fence with Gaza, which you can see behind me. And this is the point where hundreds and hundreds of terrorists came through on October 7th to commit the massacre here in Kfar Aza. Why you felt it was important to come here yourself?
You know, evil will prevail if good people do nothing. But I thought it was very important that I be a first-hand witness to the savagery and the destruction that was visited here in October the 7th. Because there's, in the United States, there's starting to be a false narrative that is perpetuating itself, and it must be met with the truth and met with the truth aggressively. Today, so many people talk about multinational approaches to solving the world's problems. We can't wait as Americans and Israelis. We can't wait on the rest of the world to push back against this evil. And so my message is, you know, one, we must be in solidarity with one another, and we must have the courage to speak out against this sort of evil and to act against it.
Well, I love Israel. I love the people here. And I've been coming for 50 years, since July of 1973. And I wanted to come and let them know that we stand with them. We stand with them because what they have been through is unconscionable. And I want them to know that far away in America, the American people are with them.
Experience the power of truth with ILTV News. If you're looking for quality content and captivating visuals, join our news community and become an integral part of our team as we embark on a mission to unveil the real Israel, dismantling the web of lies and misinformation that surround reporting on Israel. By subscribing to ILTV News, you will not only have access to the latest updates, but you will also amplify our message, creating a ripple effect that carries the truth far and wide. Subscribe today and help reshape the narrative. Available on the web, Android, and Apple.
Israeli first responder organization United Hatala has been at the forefront of saving lives in Israel, in particular in times of tragedy. While Jewish communities around the world face an alarming increase in anti-Semitic threats, United Hatala is working to assist not only those in Israel, but communities abroad too, with an innovative online emergency preparedness course that will establish an international task force. You can learn more about the program at the QR code on the screen now, but here to share with us more about this task force is United Hatala's Dov Meisel. Dov, thank you so much for joining us today. Just to kick things off, tell me more about this international task force and the motivations behind creating it.
So looking at what happened on October 7th and the days that followed, we were dealing with this terrible catastrophe here in Israel, and at the same time, we saw the uprising around the world of demonstrations, of threats, and whether it's students on campuses or in other places. You see that threat, and we're thinking it's not only about us here. Everybody is feeling what's going on here in Gaza. And we said, what can we do from here? And the idea was really to create like an online program that anyone can get on for free, obviously, and learn basic skills of what to do if there's an attacker, what do you do if there's an active shooter, and if, God forbid, there's someone who is injured, what do you do? How do you stop the bleed? What are the things that you can do on the spot and save someone's life if something happens?
Mm-hmm. Now, we know that Jewish communities are facing an uptick in anti-Semitism. How does this course specifically prepare them for such threats?
So we're talking about the Jewish communities because we can see the Jewish students on the campuses and in the Jewish community areas being affected by the demonstrations, but essentially anyone who's affected by violence because of what's going on, it doesn't matter if they're Jewish or not, can use this course, just like here in Israel and United Hatala, it's Jews and Arabs, everybody together in one mission that's saving lives, and that's our mission. And the same goes going abroad now, helping this. The attack can happen anywhere. It can happen in a synagogue. It can happen in a community center. It can happen on the street. What do you do at that moment? We saw that demonstrator in LA, I think it was, that was struck by a demonstrator. What do you do at that moment? Anyone can possibly save that person's life.
Absolutely. So what does this course entail? What skills specifically are they learning in the course?
So the most basic tools of what do you do when there's an attacker, an active shooter, run, hide, fight. How do you lock yourself in the room? Just like we had the terrible stories here in Kfar Aza and in Be'eri of people locking themselves in the safe room, in the mamad. So also there, what you can do in your own immediate area. And if somebody's bleeding, someone was either shot or stabbed or hit or whatever, how to stop the bleed, how to improvise a tourniquet. What are the first basic steps you could do until emergency services show up?
So practical skills for saving lives.
Absolutely.
Basically.
Anyone can learn, get online, register, an hour and a half online, you're done. And you can now do something. You won't stand there helpless.
Well, United Hatala has done a lot of work in Jewish communities and Arab-Israeli communities as well here on the ground in Israel. How does this task force fit into the overall mission of United Hatala?
So just like here in Israel, United Hatala, why do we call it United Hatala? Hatala is the Hebrew word for rescue. What are we uniting? Cross-section of Israeli society. Jews, Arabs, Muslims, Christians, men, women, everyone from the community. And as volunteers are Arabs and Jews, also the recipients are Arabs and Jews, and that goes abroad as well. It can, just imagine, somebody's attacking a community center. I'm sure there are non-Jewish people there as well. You can treat them. Other people can be affected, and we can be the ones who can make the difference and save their lives.
Mm-hmm. I think once again we're seeing how the importance of saving lives, the Jewish value of saving lives, is in fact helping all of the communities that Israel interacts with.
It said God created man in its image. It didn't say he created the Jew or the Arab. When we say light to the nations, it's a responsibility. It's a responsibility that we have. And I think this is a great opportunity to help our fellow Jewish communities around the world, but not only, anyone. Saving life is the most sacred thing in the world, and that's what United Hatala does.
Absolutely. Well, we are out of time, but thank you so much for joining us and for this important program. I encourage you all to sign up for this international task force. Since October 7th, Jewish communities have found a staunch ally that many did not expect. The Iranian people have been vocal and steadfast in support of Israel's right to defend itself around the world, and they're showing it in Israel too. This week, a new mural was unveiled by Iranian-American artist Houmen Khalili at the Museum of Tolerance in Jerusalem, depicting two powerful women, one Israeli and one Iranian. Shirel Chaimpour, an Israeli of Iranian descent, who was murdered by Hamas terrorists on October 7th while defending her country. Within her image is a mosaic of the faces of all the victims of the October 7th massacre. Next to her is the image of Mahsa Amini, the 22-year-old Kurdish woman murdered by the Islamic Republic of Iran's morality police, composed of the faces of hundreds of victims of the Iranian regime inside Iran. This is the 8th mural commissioned by Khalili within Israel, a project intended to show solidarity between the people of Israel and the people of Iran and unity against the terrorism of the Islamic Republic, which of course is the primary sponsor of Hamas. Other murals of support by Khalili are located in Netanya, Tel Aviv, Nazareth, and Haifa. While the anti-Israel protests have continued to cause disruptions throughout the United States, Canada, and Europe. Most recently, the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. was defaced by anti-Israel activists, and multiple Christmas events have been targeted by these Free Palestine activists as well. Now, joining us in the studio to speak about this disturbing trend is Yuval David, an Emmy award-winning actor, filmmaker, news commentator, and activist. Yuval, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you just tell us more about the situation on the ground with these Free Palestine protesters?
The situation on the ground keeps getting worse. For years, people have been talking about the rise of anti-Semitism being the canary in the coal mine. Well, you know what? The canary's dead. The coal mine has blown up. Maybe the coal mine was even a Hamas terror tunnel. And we are facing a horrible situation. I purposefully walk around with a Magen David around my neck, and I inspire other people to walk around with a Magen David or waving a flag like we have here behind us, to be demonstratively Jewish, even though there are people who hate us, even though I get cursed at in the cities in which I live, in both Washington, D.C. and New York City, on a regular basis. I hear the effing Jew comments. Now, let's not make this about me. Let's talk about what the Jewish community is facing. There are there's police presence and security outside of every synagogue, every Jewish day school. Jewish business owners are taking the names of the businesses off of their buildings for the sake of their employees. Jewish people are afraid because we're seeing that the pro-Palestinian and pro-Hamas protesters are attacking Jews. I was a keynote speaker at the Jewish National Fund Global Conference for Israel, which was one of the most amazing conferences, and I needed it from a therapeutic place, to be around doers, activists, people who are doing something. Outside of this, outside of the conference, there were people who were banging on the windows because it was the Jewish National Fund chanting things against Israel, calling us rapists, calling us pedophiles, calling us Zionist pigs, and calling us a lot of worse things. So the situation in America is terrible, it's getting worse, and we are extending our arms out to Israelis for support, even while, as today, there were rockets flying over Tel Aviv, even while Israelis have faced one of the worst atrocities that our people have faced and on this land. We need help.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that's been interesting about these protests is that most recently they seem to have sort of expanded beyond just targeting Jewish community. It seems like they're filled with hatred. Monuments have been defaced, as I mentioned. They've pulled down American flags and replaced them with Palestinians in San Francisco and New York. What is the goal of these protests?
There's this major goal that we're seeing within the movements that are happening. You know, I can't even call it the progressive or the liberal movements that are part of this as well. Communities that I'm part of, or the queer movement, communities that I'm part of, where you're seeing factions who are doing things that are anti-American, that are anti-Jewish, that are racist, that are bigoted. We're also seeing things from the Muslim, conservative, traditionalist, Islamist supporting movements that are trying to take over. If you are ripping down the flags of a country, if you are defacing the monuments of a country, then you are against that country. If you're calling for gas the Jews, to gas a minority within that country, and you're calling for the erasure of the president of that country, being pro-Palestine is not what it's about. It's being anti-democracy, it's being anti-Semitic, it's being anti-Jewish, it's being anti-anybody who's not like them. The problem is, which you know because you do amazing hasbara, and I follow you and love you on social media, it's about educating people to understand what the words occupation really mean, what the words apartheid really means, what white supremacy really means. People are shoehorning issues that pertain to racism in the United States into Middle Eastern topics where it does not make sense.
Mm-hmm. Well, Yuval, I think we're actually out of time, but I want to thank you so much for all your advocacy, all the work that you're doing, and of course for joining us today here in the studio in Israel.
It's my pleasure.
You've stayed up to date on the latest news in Israel, and now you can stay up to date on the Hebrew language too. Every week we bring you the Hebrew word of the week in partnership with eTeacher, and this week that word is emunah, which means faith, something we all could use a little of in these difficult days. If you're interested in learning more about the Hebrew language, you can check out eTeacher by scanning the barcode on the screen below, which can help you learn more.
Welcome to Hebrew Word of the Week. I'm Ariella, and in this segment, together with eTeacher, we explore the beauty and depth of the Hebrew language. We'll learn a new Hebrew word or phrase and see how it's used in the Bible, current events, and everyday life. Today's Hebrew word is emunah, which means faith. In Hebrew, emunah represents a deeply rooted belief and trust in something greater than oneself. Emunah is a word that embodies the concept of faith in Hebrew culture. It goes beyond mere belief. It signifies unwavering trust and conviction. In Hebrew culture, emunah is a fundamental aspect of religious and spiritual life. It's the cornerstone of belief in God and the guiding force behind many actions and rituals. People with strong emunah often find comfort, strength, and purpose in their faith. Here are some examples of how the word emunah is used in a sentence. Ha'emunah be'Elohim hi chelek chashuv b'chayai. Faith in God is an important part of my life. Ani mitnachem be'emunati be'et kshayim. I find comfort in my faith during difficult times. So if you're interested in learning more about the Hebrew language, check out eTeacher. This online and live course is the most established Hebrew language instruction institution. You can learn with a time-proven method for every level or start from scratch. eTeacher offers dynamic online courses with live video lessons, weekly webinars, and ample support, and allows you to connect to a lively global community for an enriched learning experience. Click the link below and visit the eTeacher website today to learn more.
Hi, this is Joel Rosenberg, editor of All Israel News. Sign up for our free daily email for the latest news from Jerusalem. Go to allisrael.com.
Let's take a look at the weather forecast. Heavy clouds are expected tonight around the country alongside lows of 12 degrees Celsius or 54 degrees Fahrenheit. Tomorrow we'll see more cloudy skies and highs of around 18 degrees Celsius or 66 degrees Fahrenheit. Then over the weekend, light rain expected in the north and heavy winds in the south. That's all for today's news. For more updates from Israel on all your devices, check out our ILTV channel, subscribe to our ILTV newsletter, and don't forget to check out our new and improved website, iltv.tv, with all the latest news from the heart of the State of Israel. I'm Emily Schrader. Be well, and thank you so much for watching.